Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by GameTime Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time, and I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because, he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome in. A very happy Monday to you here now, January the 20th of 2025. And we are getting ready for one final college football game, which will decide a national champion as Ohio State taking on Notre Dame. And we've got much to get to. It is Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. And I'm Joe Raineri, a very special edition on this holiday to kick off what has been a great day of sports so far here. NBA action all day long here on Martin Luther King Day. We also have seen a number of college basketball games already in the books, and we got some really good ones still to come here tonight, including the new look Rutgers team taking on Penn State. We'll have Georgetown, Villanova as well. So there is plenty going on here tonight, including a couple of NBA games that will that'll kick off right around 8 o'clock tonight and 10:30. You have the Jazz and Pelicans. They'll kick it off at 8 o'clock here tonight in New Orleans. And then at 10:30, a little late night degenerate special there with the Chicago Bulls, who have completely fallen off a cliff here as they have lost 5 straight, including losing to the lowly Portland Trailblazers last night. They'll take on the suddenly scorching hot L.A. Clippers in Inglewood, California. So a little something for everybody here tonight. But the focus, of course, is going to be on that national championship as we have finally made it down to this particular point. So we've got Ohio State. Looks like we're starting to see some Ohio State money back into the marketplace as we seem to be getting closer to 9 in a lot of spots right now. This was opened up as 9.5 when we first knew this was coming. It was the look-ahead line. We knew Ohio State was going to be a big favorite. It opened up 9.5, and initially we saw nothing but Notre Dame money early and often. And boy, it got this thing all the way down to 8 during the week. But now we're starting to see, with the limits higher, more money, bigger bets starting to come in, we're starting to see this thing get pushed up a little bit closer to 9 now with Ohio State getting an awful lot of money. The total, however, 45.5. It made it as high as 46.5. There does seem to be a split in the marketplace as far as, are we going to get a shootout of any sort here tonight? Or is this going to be all about the defenses? And that's the million-dollar question, because if you like the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and Riley Leonard to upset or even keep it within this 8.5, 9 points, well, then you've got to like the under in this game. I do strongly believe those two things are correlated, that if Notre Dame is going to keep this close or even have a shot at winning this thing, well, they're going to have to make sure it doesn't get to a shootout. And that's simply because they do not have the explosive playmakers that Ohio State did. So if this thing gets up and over the total and you like the over, then chances are you probably like Ohio State or the Ohio State team total to go up and over. The problem that you're having is that those that like Ohio State can't figure out whether or not they're going to get enough points from Notre Dame in this one to add to this total to get it up and over. I think the over is the way to go with extra time prepared for both of these teams. However, I don't think you're going to get more than 17 points from Notre Dame in this game. So the question is, can we get 28 or 30 points from Ohio State in this one to see it up and over? I tend to think that is the direction this game is going to go. I do feel like we have seen with both of these teams, especially Notre Dame, sometimes they got those lower scoring first halves. The defense really sets the tone. And then in the second half, it gets wild and crazy. And listen, look at the Penn State game with Notre Dame. As those two teams, that was a dead under in that game until it hit the fourth quarter. And then they ended up scoring what? Riley Leonard went off. Penn State went off. We had over 28 points in the fourth quarter alone. Yeah, Will Howard has started off very fast in games in these playoffs here. We saw him just pick apart Indiana. We saw him pick apart Oregon early on. And, of course, we saw them play from in front with Texas as well. So if you can, and I know some of the props that we've heard about all week when it comes to the two quarterbacks, is Will Howard. Is Will Howard going to be able to get up and over his passing prop, which was around the 241 and a half. I think it was as high as 243 and a half, 244. You got to think Will Howard. This Notre Dame defense is good against the run. The secondary can be had here. And again, the playmakers is what it's all about with Ohio State. Can Will Howard come out and keep the momentum going? And if Ohio State plays from in front, that's good. That's not good news, I don't think, for Notre Dame backers here. So Notre Dame needs to keep this game close. Riley Leonard, even his rushing prop, I know is getting a lot of look and a lot of love in the marketplace. We've got anytime touchdown scorers that you can actually look at here. Jeremiah Smith, who appears to be the favorite, who had a quiet game against Texas. They did a pretty good job of taking him out of the game, in fact. But what about the running backs, Trayvon Henderson and Judkins? Will they find pay dough? Will Riley Leonard be able to use his legs to get into the end zone? That's a very popular prop I've heard all throughout the week. Folks like him to be able to get in the end zone. They also like his rushing number up and over. So it all depends. I think there's a lot of ways we can correlate this game here tonight and make sure that we're not betting against ourselves. And one of the easiest ways to do it is figure out if you like Notre Dame and that's where you're leaning, well, then Notre Dame correlates to an under, because Notre Dame is not going to go toe-to-toe, point for point with this offense of Ohio State. Chip Kelly, Ryan Day, your Ohio State side. There are an awful lot of folks that also believe the coaching edge goes to Notre Dame in this one. And, well, if it's going to be a one-score game, then they're going to have a shot to win this thing late in the game. I do think for those that have tickets future tickets in Ohio State, and they've been a very popular bet for the last month and a half. There's been a lot of Ohio State money coming in the future market for them to win it all. If you're holding a ticket, the idea that you can get 8.5, 9 points in a national championship game, they didn't get here by accident, Notre Dame. They got here playing a certain quality of football, not beating themselves, not necessarily turning the ball over, but that defense has kept them close in games that they were able to pull out in the end. Can they do it again? And that is going to be the big question mark heading into this game. And I do think it's going to be close for a little while. Back in Notre Dame in the under in the first half, not a bad look. I do think fireworks are happening in this game at some point. It most likely happens when the adjustments are made in the second half. So we got much more to get to on this game. We got plenty of NFL news and notes to talk about, including a new coach. That's right, the first hire off the board. We'll talk about it when Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on this very special Monday edition as we get ready for a national championship game between the Ohio State Buckeyes and, of course, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, two absolute blue bloods and legendary programs in the college ranks, getting ready to battle it out in Atlanta for the national championship. And can Notre Dame keep it close? Well, we won't have to wait too long to figure it out here tonight. But it's not also the only thing happening in the world of sports, as we've got ourselves some NBA action still. A couple games remain. It was an early day for a lot of teams here today. We also have a few college basketball games coming up, and the NHL in full effect with also some great games still to come here tonight. And we welcome in our good friend Joe Madden, getting ready for a little hockey and football here tonight. You got to love that on this Monday holiday edition. And we've already saw a couple of games here today. We saw a pretty cool one with the Wild taking down the Avalanche. We saw the Bruins explode for 4 goals in the third to take the Sharks down. But we're getting ready for George Kurtz's favorite disappointment, the Islanders, getting ready to take on the Blue Jackets here, Joe. And to tell you the truth, I'm kind of shocked the number is this high here. But what are you thinking about this one here? Are the Blue Jackets primed for an upset here tonight?
They could be. They absolutely could be. But this is a team that struggled versus the Islanders. They're 0-5 in the last 5 meetings here in New York, and I just don't know if they can get it done. After coming off that tough game on Saturday, that was a game on Saturday versus the New York Rangers that had to go all the way to shootout. And when you think of that, you think, what, 2-3 goals during the game by both of these teams? No, it was scoreless going to that shootout. So 1-0 win for the Rangers, really hard loss for the Columbus Blue Jackets to take. Now they take on the New York Islanders, who do struggle on special teams. Non-existent power play, non-existent kill, but Sorokin in goal. We saw Sorokin roll into Vegas and be able to get the shutout win. So I do think the Islanders can step up here versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. The problem is you've got to lay so much juice on the Isles at home. I do think this would be a live betting situation if they went down, but right now you can take them in regulation, Joe. I like the regulation bet coming in at -105. They should be able to get things done at home. I would look at Bo Horvat to find the back of the net and Matthew Barzal.
We have another interesting one here with Tampa Bay getting ready to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs, I believe, have won both meetings already this season. They've won 6 of the last 8 regular season games over their rivals here. It's kind of been a one-sided affair. Does that continue here tonight?
Battle of the Atlantic. This is going to be a great game out there on the ice. The Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, sitting first in the Atlantic, and the Tampa Bay Lightning is sitting third. I do think the Lightning have the opportunity to come in and get a win. We know how hard it is for teams to beat them 3 times in a season. And I do think the Leafs with Joseph Woll in net tonight, while they're going to come out strong and they're going to come out strong defensively, will be pushed here by the Tampa Bay Lightning, even though they get that last change. I'm looking for this game to go to overtime. I think this is such a tight battle between these two teams, and I do lean the under 6.5, but really hard to take an under 6.5 when you're taking into account that overtime. I do think it's probably 2-2 going to overtime, Joe, but we could see that 3-2 style game where then we get that third goal pushing us over that total in overtime. So I'll take the overtime bet in this one. I would also look at a couple of players. I do think the Tampa Bay Lightning can pull it off. I love Braden Point to come out nice and strong, be able to find the back of the net tonight. Nikita Kucherov as well. I think those are your playmakers there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And when you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, you can't not take Mitch Marner here. He's just been playing fantastically out there on the ice. And William Nylander, I think, can get some points on the board tonight as well. I'd take him for a point, Mitch Marner for a point, parlay them together, and you're going to get positive money.
Yeah, and I think the first of a back-to-back for Tampa. I think they have Montreal tomorrow night as well. They haven't really fared well in this kind of spot here, but I like the overtime number. I like looking at that too, as a matter of fact. I will be playing that, Joe, and I'll also, it's the Chicago Blackhawks, which means the first period over 1.5 is a automatic play, especially at the United Center. They're taking on Carolina, who is now a $3 favorite, Joe, in this one here. But there's other ways to bet this game here and probably get a pretty good price on it.
Yeah, there's a ton of ways to bet this one. And with the inconsistencies of the Carolina Hurricanes out there on the road, who wants to lay that sort of juice on this team? I don't even want to look at this team on the puck line. I think if you do like Carolina, you would go in on their team total, taking the over 3.5. You're still going to have to lay a little bit of juice, but they should be able to get those goals even with those inconsistencies on Chicago. But I'm not biting on Carolina tonight. I do think the Chicago Blackhawks, we've seen them be able to pull off these amazing upsets. They got another upset over Vegas on Saturday, 5-2 win there at home. I do think Carolina is vulnerable in this situation. First night of back-to-back for them. They have the Dallas Stars on deck. They're coming off a win versus Vegas. So they got the 3-2 win on Friday. They have had the rest advantage here. But with the Stars on deck, I think they're looking ahead to the Stars. They also have beaten the Chicago Blackhawks the last 6 meetings, so I think they'll overlook them in this one. Give me Chicago plus 1.5. You're getting plus money on that puck line, Joe, and I think it's worth a sprinkle on that puck line to take the Chicago Blackhawks for the straight-up upset. Now, normally I'd want to come in on Chicago if Carolina scored first. I'm not sure if they'll get there because Carolina first period has been hard for them, especially out there on the road. They haven't been able to win the first period in their last 6.
I looked at this number, Joe, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, Carolina just 9 wins in 22 road games. And you've got, to your point, you've got a Chicago team that just beat the Golden Knights, right? I know they beat Florida not too long ago. Dallas. Well, I mean, you go down the list here. It's like they have beaten some teams on their ice here that you don't expect. So maybe, just maybe, if it ain't broke, we ain't fixing it here. What are we supposed to do with Winnipeg and Utah here tonight? This is actually a cheaper price than I thought it would be with Winnipeg as well.
Yeah, which is kind of scary, right? Why are the books begging us to take the Winnipeg Jets? They were minus 140 favorite when this opened. Minus 182 as the juices ticked up during the day and people come in on the Winnipeg Jets. I'm not biting. The Avs on deck on Wednesday. Look ahead spot. Take Utah straight up.
We'll have more, though. Don't go anywhere. More NHL talk, college championship. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by GameTime Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
One of the weirdest nicknames I've heard in fighting. There's people have some strange nicknames at times, but the Lemon Killer. What do you even make of that? What is that about?
I don't even know what that means, but I'm gonna squeeze him like a lemon on the day we fight, and he's gonna pop.
Only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? See that guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game Time Decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready for the national championship here tonight between Ohio State and Notre Dame. We want to wrap up the rest of the NHL slate here with Joe Madden. And Joe, you mentioned Utah Hockey Club at a nice plus price here tonight. And you're not trusting your Winnipeg Jets there. I didn't get the vibe that that Winnipeg was the side you liked here in this one.
Yeah, so just because I'm Canadian doesn't mean they're my Winnipeg Jets, Joe. Let's just clear that up. As a Calgary fan, you just don't say that, right? But no, there's
Mm-hmm.
no way I'm touching Winnipeg in this matchup. I really do think they'll be looking ahead to that rivalry game with the Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday. They'll be looking past this Utah team who they were able to beat back in November. They got the shutout win back in November, 3-0. And I do think Utah will come in nice and scrappy in this one. Logan Cooley has been great the last 3 games, being able to light the lamp in each and every one of those. So I would look at him again tonight, and I love that home dog price that we're getting on Utah today. I'll take a chance on them, Joe.
All right, I love it. And then we got the late game here tonight. Penguins at the Kings. This is the first game for the Kings, right, on their home ice since the Fires. So it looks like they'll be at home here tonight with the Penguins. What are we looking to do in this one?
Little concerned here for the full game for the LA Kings, because you look at that look ahead again, and it is your Florida Panthers on deck, which we know is such a strong opponent when they're taking on a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins that they know have had those road inconsistencies, haven't been able to hold those leads. I do think they could overlook them a little bit here, especially in preparation for the game versus the Florida Panthers. If they go down in this one, I'm not taking them to come back to get that win. But going into this with them off the loss to the Seattle Kraken, I do think we'll get the best of them in the first period. Now, it is David Rittich confirmed, not Darcy Kemper in net. So the Pittsburgh Penguins have every ability to get up in the first as well. But I'm really seeing this 2-1 style first period. So the Kings do cover that puck line, laying the half a goal on the puck line, coming in at plus 144. Now, if you just want to look at the over 1.5, I don't blame you now with Rittich in. Before with Kemper, I love the puck line on the first period, but I do like the over 1.5 and both teams to score as well. But I think at the end of the day, the Kings will score 2 in that first period and then try to lock down and play that lockdown defense in this one, Joe.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. I like the card here that remains in the NHL. And, of course, Joe, a national championship game coming up. So run down, give us a couple of looks that you like in this game between Ohio State and Notre Dame tonight.
Yeah, super excited for the national championship game tonight, Joe. I think it's going to be a good one. You look at both of these teams and how strong the defenses are. Notre Dame, their secondary is absolutely phenomenal, and they're going to give Will Howard such a hard time for him to try to move that ball deep. Now, we know he's going to be looking for Jeremiah Smith out there. Smith has been fantastic, but are they going to be able to get the ball to him is my biggest question mark in this with that secondary of Notre Dame. And then when we look at Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, so strong with his legs. We're going to see the defense of Ohio State really after him in this game. This team can force those sacks. They can also force those fumbles out there on the field, get those interceptions, and score off of them. So this game, I really do think, unless we get a couple of pick sixes out there, the defenses have the upper hand. I'm taking the under 45.5. Now, this was 46, but under 45.5 coming in at minus 108. I do think at the end of the day, the Buckeyes get there. I think the Buckeyes win and cover the spread of 8.5, but in a lower scoring game, it is a scary place to be. Now, I love Travion Henderson here to go off, the running back for Ohio State. I'm going to take his rushing yards to the over, and I think there's a way you could look at his rushing and receiving as well. We've seen him in a couple games this year, Joe, where he's had one reception for like 75 yards. That short pass off to him where he's been able to get into a lane and just run away with it. So if you want to look at the rushing and receiving, I would, but I really do feel more confident in just the rushing yards out there. And then the anytime touchdown for him as well. I think he can get in the end zone. Now, when we look at Riley Leonard, his rushing prop just seems too low. He's going to be under that pressure. He's going to have to use his legs. We know Riley Leonard's not a quarterback that throws the ball a lot. So I'll take him over 36.5 rushing yards. I'm still really confused why this isn't closer to 50, Joe.
Yeah, it's, I mean, if you're, and I said it earlier, Joe, I thought that this is correlated because if you like Ohio State, you're probably looking at their team total over. If you like Notre Dame, and even to stay within this number, Joe, how are we getting to that number? I mean, that's the whole question. They have to keep the game one, otherwise they're never going to get it done. So we're looking forward to it, Joe. We appreciate it as always. We'll have more Game Time Decisions next here on the Grid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by GameTime Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
Welcome back, Game Time Decisions. I'm George Kurtz. Joe Raineri will be back shortly, assuming I decide to let him back on air. We got, of course, the big national championship game tonight, so we'll see how that goes. But that's not what I'm here for, right? By the way, for anyone wondering, I probably root for Notre Dame. I would say the biggest thing, I am Irish, maybe that's why here. But I really haven't been all that amused by college football since the early 80s when I was on with when I was a big SMU fan, Eric Dickerson, Craig James. Maybe when Jimmy Johnson came to the Cowboys in the 90s, I was big on them. But we know tonight I'm on the NHL. And the big game tonight will be the Toronto Maple Leafs and Tampa Bay Lightning here. Joseph Woll is going to be in net for the Maple Leafs, which is always, you always check that, see if they're going to go to back up the hill to be there. We know Stolars is still out. I mean, this is a nice price to take the Lightning. They're both good teams here. All right, but the Maple Leafs have been a little up and down. Woll is good, but he's not great. He can be beat. All right, so you're going to be plus money with Tampa Bay. Hey, I am almost forced to take this here. Now, I don't love it. You know, I certainly wouldn't be going bananas here. Go, oh, I got to get this. I do think there's going to be some goals scored in this game. So I think we can attack the over as well in this contest. Like I said, this is not a game I would go, break the bank, use all my whatever's in your account on FanDuel here. But I do like this contest here. And I said it's the plus money with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Over is 6.5. I'm going to take the over as well here. Probably a smaller play on that. And generally when I take an over, if I think 7 goals are going to be scored, I want to attack an anytime goal scorer. All right, now maybe you want to go Kucherov, maybe you want to go Austin Matthews. Nylander's heating up again. Remember, no Tavares tonight. He's out here. So give me the Tampa Bay Lightning and the over, and I'm likely going to go with Kucherov for an anytime goal scorer in this contest here. So that's how I'm going to attack this game here. Next game. All right, I'm the Islander fan. All right, Islanders and Columbus Blue Jackets. Islanders are, I don't understand this one at all. How are the Islanders minus 184 favorites over anybody? Yeah, I know they're 4-2 in their last 6. All right, also 1-1 in their last 2. The Blue Jackets have been playing great of late. This team is making me money. All right, Merzlikins, listen, he's been solid. This team also lets in goals. Islanders could let it go. Sorokin has been playing all that great. I like the over in this contest where I'm going with that. And I'm going to take once again, I know I'm called Captain Chalk, which I'm sure Joe Raineri is going to remind you of here, but I'm going to cut. You're going to give me plus money. I don't have a choice here. Now, our next game here, Carolina and Chicago. All right, I'm not taking Chicago. All right, I'm not going 3 chalks in a row, but there's no way I am laying 320 with the Hurricanes. Let me give you a couple of reasons why. One, hey, 320 is nuts. All right, we just don't lay that. You're not laying 3-1 here. But also,
All right, the Carolina Hurricanes on the road are not a. This is a team that's great at home, poor on the road. Do I think they'll win tonight? Sure. Would I be willing to put them in a parlay? Absolutely. But there's no way I am leaning 3-1, moving 3-1 on the road here. I probably do lean over as well here, and that may be where I go in this game. I'll take the over more than I'm going to attack. Like I said, Hurricanes. No, I'm not laying 3-1. Home record, road record, not good. Next we get Utah and Winnipeg. This is a nice little game tonight, and I don't mind this. Minus 182 for Peg. Utah has not played all that well at home. A little better of late, but not all that well at home this season here. We know Peg is the better team. That being said, they're struggling of late. All right, they're not playing as well. They're still playing good, just not as well as they have been here. So I think you might want to keep that in mind here. It's not Hellebuck's fault. He's generally played well. He's not laying in more than 3 goals, and even that's odd. 2 to 3 goals, what he's giving up. The goal scoring. Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers. Listen, these guys are all great goal scorers, but they've been a little dry of late here. Still hard not to like the Winnipeg Jets tonight. So those are really my plays tonight. Like I said, to go over it once again, I'm taking Tampa Bay. I'm going to take the over in that game. I don't know why Columbus is such a big dog tonight. The Islanders is such a big favorite. That's nuts here. Definitely give me the Blue Jackets here. I'm going to take the over in that game as well. Carolina, Chicago, not touching. Winnipeg and Utah, not all that thrilled about that. The last game of the night, by the way, would be Pittsburgh and the Kings. As far as the Penguins and Kings are concerned, Penguins, listen, you don't know what you're going to get. All right, they just released Tristan Jarry last week, which is a huge shock. They just signed him to a big contract here. Kyle Dubas, the GM there, really hasn't done the job that I thought he would do here. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not taking Pittsburgh here. I'm probably going to leave this game alone. I don't feel great about the over or the under here. Maybe you could think about taking the Kings minus -1.5 plus 136. That might be a way to go, but that's not something I would advise here as far as what's going on in LA there. Now, the big news today, of course, was Chicago Bears got their head coach. And I got to tell you, I was a little surprised. I think so. Ben Johnson, I'm the Cowboy guy. I wanted Ben Johnson to go to the Cowboys. It wasn't happening. I wanted Mike Vrabel, not happening. Jerry Jones didn't even interview either one of these guys. All right, you want to tell me that Jerry Jones cares about winning and he wants to get the best people in place here? That's BS. All right, he just wants another puppet there. But that being said, Ben Johnson, I thought had 2 choices here. Bears or Jaguars, assuming he wanted to go to a team that had a quarterback, right? The Raiders, I know Tom Brady pushed hard for him. I thought he might go there because of Brady, but Minshew, O'Connell, I mean, is Ken Stabler coming out of retirement? No, so we're not going there. New Orleans Saints, they don't have a quarterback. I don't know if Derek Carr will be back there. We'll see. So I do think I would have chosen the Jaguars if I was Ben Johnson because I would not have wanted to be in the NFC North. Why would you want to compete with Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay? I mean, that's 3 teams you've got to get above here. But then again, you have a quarterback, and you can build around that quarterback. You don't have an offensive line, but you have a quarterback there, so maybe that works there. Still, I would have thought the Jaguars might have been the place to go. Easier division. It's right to Houston, Texas, Indianapolis. We'll see what they can do there. So I would have thought he might have chose that, the Jaguars, if he believed in Trevor Lawrence. And Joe, maybe he doesn't believe in Trevor Lawrence.
What does it say about the Jaguars that they couldn't land this guy? Maybe Trent Baalke has something to do with that, since Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, decided to come out and explain to everyone why it was that he would fire the coach but not fire the general manager and start from scratch, which, of course, Trent Baalke, we all know, is a general manager in which no coach worth his weight in salt wants to be a part of, George. Nobody wants to work with this guy. I mean, he basically ran Harbaugh out of the league when he was at the 49ers. Harbaugh couldn't get along with him and left for Michigan after that and said, see you later. So it wouldn't shock me that a first-time head coach, even with, and I can make the argument, we got some great talent on Jacksonville in a much easier conference, but I don't know. I mean, choosing Chicago, and what about Mike McCarthy, who we understand it came down to him and Mike McCarthy for the Chicago job? Is Mike McCarthy now possibly heading to Jacksonville for an interview? I do think somebody's hiring McCarthy here, George. I don't know who it's going to be, but I do think somebody's going to hire him. I don't put anything at his feet of what Cowboys went through. I think he was set up to fail, and I think they're putting an awful lot of weight on him. I still think he's a good coach in this league, and any team with a young quarterback, you can do a lot worse than Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, someone's to hit here, right? We hear McCarthy's going to have an in-person interview with the Saints later this week, so maybe Wednesday he gets that going here. I agree. I think he will get a job here. Maybe it's the Saints here. Maybe it's the Jags. Aaron Glenn apparently is going to the Jets interview, not hired, but he's going to the Jets. I wonder if the Jets even let him leave. I think that's happening tomorrow. So if he's your guy there, he'll maybe he gets that job there. I don't know what's going on with Balky. And Khan said today it would have been suicidal to remove both Peterson and Balky. Really? Isn't that what you do if you need to do that? And as you said, Balky's reputation, not very good. Maybe that's why you're not getting anybody to want to go there. Nope. They don't want to work with him. I think Peterson was pretty bad, but you can make an argument that Balky was just as bad, if not worse, and that they both should go here and start over from scratch there. So we'll see. But, I guess as far as the Cowboys are concerned, we'll just wait to see who's ever left. It doesn't matter. Because Lord knows Jerry's just going to pull those strings anyway and do whatever he wants to do because he's the greatest GM there ever was.
I'm wondering, too, what happens, Kurtz, and we'll talk about it on the other side here, because where does Detroit go from here now? Because don't forget, I think Goff got there the year prior to Ben Johnson taking over, and really those two, a lot of his success credited to Ben Johnson. So where does Detroit go from here? Who fills that role, which is going to be an interesting choice as well, and still a lot more to be decided in the head coaching. We'll have more NFL talk when Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by Game Time Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready, of course, to crown a national champion. A little bit later here, coming up 7:30 Eastern Time, we will pass the baton off to our college football guys there. Of course, Ben Stevens, Joe Lisi in the house, and they will have every snap, every play coming your way. You don't have to go anywhere, as the college football crew will be ready to get you all prepped there. In the meantime, we got plenty of NFL news and notes here today. George Kurtz back with us here. And Kurtz, the Bears hiring Ben Johnson as the new head coach. And I'll give him this. They didn't leave any stone unturned. The best part about the Bears getting to hire him is they should be thankful that, Washington ended up bouncing him. So this way they were able to get there. It always felt like that was kind of the direction he was leaning towards anyway. They still have a ton of cap money. They still have some things they can get done there. And who better? It's a great hire for the Bears, Kurtz, because he's 38 years old. Now he's got a young quarterback he can groom there in Caleb Williams. This is the kind of DeAndre Swift's there, Cole Kmet. Man, they got a Dunzier, Keenan Allen. They got more than enough for a guy that's supposed to be the next whiz offensive coordinator, right? Turned head coach, kind of like McVay. Well, we're going to find out if it works or not. It's not short of talent, but I still don't trust that front office. And I think he's got to get the right hires around him. But then that means Dallas. That means the Jets. That means Jacksonville. There's still a lot of questions with some of these other teams that are looking for head coaches here. What's the next domino to fall, do you think? And who are we looking at? Is this just going to be the Mike McCarthy's, the retreads of the world? Or what is the next domino to fall here, you think? And by the way, does Kingsbury get back?
He, once again, he sort of gets screwed out of this, right? Because since he won, he probably has to wait till at least next week, right? Well, next week. Yep. Even if he wins and Washington does go to the Super Bowl, which I can't believe there's a shot at this. But even if that happens, it's a 2-week, he'll be able to interview. So he will have a shot there. But yeah, I think Kingsbury does get the look here. And by the way, maybe that's what Dallas is waiting for. Yeah, maybe it's Kingsbury. I don't know at this point what Dallas is waiting for. But I think the next domino to fall will either be McCarthy, right? Because I think he was close. I think he was the Bears' second choice here. Ben Johnson was going to say no. Maybe he gets that job with the New Orleans Saints. We'll see. If not, Aaron Glenn, same situation as Ben Johnson. He may not have been as hot a name, right, as Ben Johnson, but he still is a guy who we expect to get a head coaching job if he wants it. Maybe he's going to be from the Jets. He's a former Jet here, so it wouldn't be all that shocking here. And we hear, by the way, that after he meets with the Jets, he does have a meeting set up with the Saints. Now, that can be canceled, of course, if the Jets offer a contract they can't refuse, or if the Saints decide, okay, hey, Mike McCarthy, we can't let you leave, so we're going to hire you. But I think the Saints in a perfect world would like to interview McCarthy and Glenn. So I think that's your next two, McCarthy and Glenn here. Listen, as far as the Cowboys are concerned, I don't think Jerry Jones do the damn thing until the Super Bowl. He's going to milk this for everything it's worth, every ounce of publicity, whoever the next Dallas head coach is going to be. And by the way, it won't matter. All right, I said, I made the little thing with the puppets. It doesn't matter. All right, the Raiders, I mean, Joe, I understand there's only 32 head coaching jobs, but they don't have a quarterback. Tough to get someone to want to go there. I mean, that's why Ben Johnson didn't want to go there, right? I mean, Tom Brady's great. I mean, it's great to have Brady, but you still have no quarterback. Brady's not coming out of retirement. So that's an issue there. So Jacksonville, I think Balky is a problem. Because I think they might have the most talent of the teams that are that need a head coach outside of the Cowboys, but no one wants to work with Balky. No one wants to work with Jerry Jones. Same thing here. So Aaron Glenn, if I'm going to guess, I'm going to say Aaron Glenn ends up with the Jets, McCarthy with the Saints.
And I can't wait to see what happens with Kellen Moore here because once again, Jerry loves to get that familiarity with guys. Usually the Garretts of the world. I wouldn't be shocked if Kellen Moore at some point is on the back burner for the Cowboys because that's how Jerry rolls. But boy, he continues. Him and Sirianni just continue to make some head-scratching decisions during the games. It didn't cost them, fortunately for them, yesterday, but it could very easily have. Clock managing, play calling, all of it yesterday was a head-scratcher. But Kellen Moore is going to be a legit candidate to be a coach in this league. He's going to have those opportunities. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. But looking ahead, now we've got 4 teams remaining, right? NFC, the upstart Washington, who I think has the better coaching staff. Call me crazy. The better coaching staff taking on a Philadelphia team where Sirianni and Kellen Moore are head scratchers. So it's the NFC East, not the NFC North, Kurtz, that's going to be playing in the big game here. And then we've seen this movie before, right? Kansas City and Buffalo getting ready to go in the AFC, and we already saw both of these teams have faced one another. I mean, so, and if you're looking at Washington and Philadelphia, we saw it not once but twice. So this is, I think, going to be a fascinating weekend coming up between these four teams.
I agree, right? The NFC North, by the way, got obliterated in the playoffs. What was it, 95-40? They were able to score something silly like that. Who saw that coming here? I said, got a damn good chance to be Philadelphia. I can't believe this. And by the way, Craig Mish, my partner on Fantasy Sports Today on Saturday mornings, I am going to eat it Saturday morning when he just brags about the Commanders. So I'm dreading doing the show. Sam, I'm going to be sick on Saturday. So I think we have a damn good chance to win the game here. I might even pick him in the game. Jalen Hurts does not look good, right? He is banged up. We'll see how that injury heals during the week here. As for the AFC, I think it's going to be great. Absolutely great. And I think Buffalo wins, all right? I think the Buffalo Bills finally get I think Josh Allen gets that monkey off his back, and he defeats the Kansas City Chiefs and ends Mahomes' little reign of terror here. Hopefully the refs don't get involved in the game.
Yeah, let's hope that's not the case. But I'll also say this: you can score 50 points a game during the regular season. It doesn't matter if you turn the ball over in the playoffs, Kurtz. Guess what happens? You lose. I don't care how good you looked in the regular season. And I think Baltimore, Detroit, a few other teams learned that the hard way. Kurtz, we appreciate it as always. Game Time Decisions continues here on the grid.
Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by Game Time Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time, and I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network, a very special edition of Game Time Decisions as we get ready for a national championship game coming up next hour, Notre Dame and Ohio State. But we got a lot of other things going on across the sports landscape, and it is time now for a Sports Millions Pick'em, where you pick your players, you guess the projections correctly, and you win. And who better to help us point us in that direction than Tom Vecchio and Joe Madden? What do you got for us here tonight?
Happy Monday, everyone. It's time to jump into our Sports Millions Pick'ems. Tom, you're going to hit the ice. I'm going to hit the national championship. Why don't you take us off first?
Yeah, we have a full slate of NHL games today. Let's turn to one of the later games. Let's go to the Carolina Hurricanes visiting the Chicago Blackhawks. And let's turn to the Carolina Hurricanes top line center, Sebastian Aho. Let's go to him for higher than 2.5 shots on goal since the start of January. He has at least 2 shots on goal in 8 out of the 9 games. He's live for this. You could look to his assist prop, but frankly, he's been a bit up and down when it comes to total point production since the start of January. He has just 1 point over his last 6 games. So I like going with a little bit of a safer route with the shots on goal, and this is a great matchup kind of just for him and the Hurricanes overall to kind of right the ship a little bit on offense going up against the Blackhawks. Also, since the start of January, they're allowing the 6th most total shot attempts per 60 minutes in 5v5 situations. So Aho and that top line, along with Andrei Svechnikov, they are in a great spot tonight to really pour on the offense. What do you got for the national championship game?
Oh, I absolutely love where you're going with that one. I think that's a nice way to take it. Looking at the national championship game tonight between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, I am looking at a player here for Ohio State. I think this team has every ability to not only come out and win, but dominate in this matchup. And I do think it's going to come down to a couple of key players. We know so many weapons out there, but when we look at Notre Dame and that defense is so strong in the secondary. They're going to have to establish the running game, and I'm looking at Travion Henderson to come out nice and strong on the ground. Now, I'm going to take him higher than 56.5 rushing yards, and I do think he has success being able to get there. He does have a rushing and receiving number as well. This number is high at 80.5, but I do think he could go higher than that if you want to look that way, but I'm really trusting him here on the ground versus his defense here of Notre Dame. We look at him in the playoffs. He's just turned it up absolutely another level. While he was only able to put up 42 rushing yards versus Texas, we saw him versus Oregon. He nicely cleared the 56.5, going all the way up to 94 yards on the ground. He also had 80 versus Tennessee. So I'm going to count on Travion Henderson to come out nice and strong. I'll lock him in higher than 56.5 rushing yards, Tom.
An awesome game to end the season. We got NFL playoffs, which we'll certainly dive into as the week goes on. Great time to be a sports fan.
It definitely is. You guys make sure you join us back here tomorrow for another Sports Millions Pick'ems.
All right, good stuff. Thanks so very much. But let's not forget the NBA still with a couple of games to go here tonight. And here's Tom Vecchio with another Sports Millions Blitz'em in the NBA.
Enjoy Sports Millions Pick'ems, but hate making the picks yourself? Well, Sports Millions has you covered. Head on over and play Sports Millions Blitz'em right now and let the computer do the work. Go to sportsmillions.com/blitz'em to be able to win big prizes without having to make a single pick yourself. That's sportsmillions.com/blitz'em.
All right, a lot of ways to make it a very profitable evening and start to the week here on this January 20th. But of course, the national championship just around the corner here as we look very forward to checking out Ohio State and Notre Dame. And don't forget, we have got you covered here. Coming up the bottom of next hour, we'll hand it off to our college football gurus who will have you covered the entire game and post game here with Ben Stevens, Joe Lisi in the house, Donnie Rightside, Kevin Walsh, the whole gang in it to win it for you guys here. And we're looking forward. We'll have much more on that game. Plenty of NFL talk as well. Heck, no better way to start off the week than right here with Game Time Decisions. College basketball also underway. We'll let you know what's happening there as we get ready for the national championship here on the SportsGrid Network.
Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by GameTime Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time. And I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because, he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome in Game Time Decisions here on a national championship Monday as we're getting ready, of course, Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, going to be taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes in Atlanta for all the marbles, as they say, as the national championship in college football. It is almost here. I'm Joe Raineri. This is Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network, and we certainly appreciate you stopping by, but not the only thing we got going on in the world of sports here. Plenty of NFL news and notes from what was a crazy weekend. We're only down to 4 teams now vying for a opportunity for a Super Bowl championship, and some familiar faces will be going head-to-head next week, and at least we got one newcomer in the Final Four. And let's not forget, of course, it is golf season, and we got plenty of big news on that front as well. And who better to talk with than our good friend Brady Cannon here on Game Time Decisions? Because, Brady, it was, we kind of got lost in the shuffle over the weekend with so much football going on, getting ready for this national championship game. But, we started to see, it's like you had just said off air, it's starting to be big boy golf season. Sepp Straka taking down a 54-hole lead, holds on, beats Justin Thomas in what was a great American Express. We got the Farmers starting early this week, and boy, that's going to be good. And then Pebble Beach is here, and then it's major season. We'll have the Masters before we know it, Brady. It's crazy, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The preseason is over, and that's how I always treat it. The 2 Hawaii events and the American Express, I like to kind of get my feet wet, take a look at who's playing well, and now big boy season starts. We go to Torrey Pines, a major championship venue. Then we go to Pebble Beach for a signature event. Now, we probably will not go to Riviera. Of course, the LA Fires there in the Pacific Palisades area, but I'm hearing rumors that they will hold the Genesis Invitational at Torrey Pines. So a little preview here, and that's another signature event. Of course, then you've got Super Bowl weekend with the Phoenix Open. We know what a rager that is. That's just unbelievable every year. And then I think we'll come back to Torrey Pines for the Genesis Invitational after Super Bowl week. So a little preview here, and that's a signature event as well, Joe. So I think you'll have all the big boys. They're not all here this week. There's a lot of them, but not all of them. But about 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time, whatever it is, I think they'll all be back here at Torrey Pines. So, yeah, you've got Tony Finau, you've got Sahith Theegala, you've got Shane Lowry, but Xander Schauffele, it's come out that, he has got an injury, apparently a soft tissue area or a soft tissue injury in his rib area. And Colin Morikawa, unfortunately, has pulled out of this event as well. And we know Scotty's still nursing the injured hand, but we do expect at least Morikawa and Scheffler back next week at Pebble. We'll see how this injury plays out for Schauffele. He pulled out of the Amex last week as well. But also, hats off and congratulations to our man, Mike Carver, who landed on Sepp Straka at 60-1 last week in La Quinta.
Yeah, and also as a side note, because, the TGL is in my backyard here, Brady, in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And from what I saw, there was a release. He's already been withdrawn for the next event there as well, where he was supposed to be playing. So I hope it's nothing serious, and we can get Xander back in the mix, coming off of what was a career year. But having Scotty Scheffler on the horizon is pretty, I don't know, that good news for the fans, terrible news probably for everyone else on the tour, as Pebble Beach, I believe, will be is what they're aiming for at this point.
Yep, absolutely. And that goes down next week. That is a signature event. You remember last year was cut short to 54 holes due to weather. But that was kind of the beginning of the Wyndham Clark-Scotty Scheffler battle that we saw happen 2 or 3 times early in the season. And then Schauffele got in the mix as well. Scotty, of course, wins the Players' Championship, and Wyndham Clark and Xander Schauffele finished second. Wyndham Clark wins at Pebble Beach last year, again in 54 holes. So we'll see him defending his title this year, I'm sure. Ludwig Oberg is in the field this week at Torrey. He'll be at Pebble Beach. So, yeah, golf season really kicking in here, and hopefully Schauffele gets healthy. Joe, I landed on 8 guys this week. I typically don't play 8 futures for one tournament, maybe a major championship or something, but I'll also temper that statement a little bit here. I only played 2 guys that are less than 50-1. Okay, so a lot of long bombs here. I started with Tony Finau, who is just Mr. Torrey Pines. He is seemingly finishes top 10, top 5 there every year. I just couldn't avoid him. Got him at 26-1, which felt to me like a pretty darn good price. And then I played Keegan Bradley. This course is so much about total driving. It's long. It's almost 7,800 yards, and the fairways are narrow. So you really got to hit it long and straight, and nobody really better to do that than Keegan Bradley. I think he's inspired this year as the Ryder Cup captain. I think you're going to see a good season out of him. Took him at 22-1. And then, like I say, pretty much long bombs with the rest. Aaron Rye at 52. Bo Hostler at 55. Gary Woodland went back to the well, old school with Woodland here at 85-1. JJ Spawn, a San Diego guy, at 60-1. And then a couple at triple digits. Harris English at 110. Henrik Norlander at 160-1.
Wow. So these are some big numbers we're talking about here, Brady. But anything is possible this early on in the year, right? I mean, it's not always chalk this time of year. We get that maybe a little bit down the road, but it could be anybody's game, and course history matters to you this time of year, does it not?
It does. And all these guys have done well here in the past. Norlander, at 160-1. It's not like I'm really banking on him to win, but he's got good history here, and he's got very good history on the correlated courses. JJ Spawn, a San Diego State guy who's been playing really well. He's been in the mix the last couple of weeks on tour. Harris English has done well here in the past, as has Woodland. Now, Woodland, he had the brain surgery, God bless his heart, but, he's on the mend, and he's played well here in the past, as is Hostler and Aaron Rye, and, of course, Bradley and Finau. So, I mean, they all make sense. We'll see if we can land on one of them.
I love that. All right, we got some NFL games coming up this weekend. Interesting stuff. I know you were big on some dogs heading into this past weekend. I don't even consider Buffalo a dog. I thought the wrong team was favored there, but they end up getting it done outright. But I guess it's the Washington team that has got everybody talking here, Brady. The only newcomer we've got in the same old, it feels like, coming down to the Final Four here.
Yeah, I like this Final Four. I think there's a good matchups, and you're right. It's teaser season for me. We've talked about this, Joe. We know these lines are really tight this time of year. These odds makers have these power ratings pretty well figured out by this stage in the game. And so when you tweak it by 6-7 points, it really makes a huge difference. And you're right. I tweaked 3 of the dogs, and I tweaked Philadelphia down, and it all worked. And, you know, it feels like I'm a part of the betting public this week, but I think Washington is another live dog, especially when you use it in a teaser this week. You get all the way through the key number of 7 and 8 and 10 and 11. I think they're live as far as a teaser play. And again, I think the wrong team is favored with the Buffalo Bills. So I like Buffalo as well to win that one outright.
It's kind of crazy, Brady, because all of these games, they've all played one another. It's an NFC East battle. They've already seen each other. I think it's going to be fascinating. I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate it as always, Brady. We look forward to the Farmers coming up here, and Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready for a national championship. Who will it be? Will Ohio State do the unthinkable? Come back as an 8 seed? Kind of funny even saying that. In the very first 12-team national championship, is Ohio State going to show the world that you can never count them out here? Or will Notre Dame do the unthinkable as nearly a 9-point underdog right now? Will they shock the world and get it done here? The one thing I can tell you is this is probably going to be one of the highest rated national championship games that we've seen, at least early on, because I do caution folks that it is an 8.5 point spread for a reason. There is a significant difference in certainly, I think, offensively between these two teams here. So if the market thought they were closer in talent, this game would be on a neutral site, much closer to maybe a field goal, not 2 scores here. So I worry that this could very well be a blowout situation here with Ohio State. And the reason I'm worried about that is because Notre Dame is not built to come from behind here. If Notre Dame is going to win this game or cover this game, they're going to have to do it by keeping this a 1-score game, keeping it lower scoring, and keeping the big playability of Ohio State away. They can't allow, Smith to go for 85 yards on a single play and a touchdown. Oregon learned that rather quickly here. So I can tell you this, Notre Dame will not be pushed around. I think this is going to be maybe the most physical game that we have seen so far in these playoffs. I thought the game with Texas last week, I thought that was very physical as well, and I thought they handled business there. I don't think anybody believes Ohio State is just going to go into Atlanta and just run over Notre Dame because they're bigger, stronger, faster. That is not the situation here at all. So the problem, it's going to come down to big playability in the quarterbacks between Riley Leonard and, of course, Will Howard here. Now, Will Howard, anytime touchdown. I think both quarterbacks, in fact, anytime touchdowns are good to go. I did take the Will Howard passing yardage prop up and over the 241.5, 242. I think that number might even be a little bit higher now, and I like it. I like his chances of being able to pick apart this secondary a little bit, this young secondary of Notre Dame. But anybody that has followed Will Howard in his career, especially when he was with Kansas State, the problem with Will Howard is he has been known every now and then to maybe wear the wrong jersey, and it looks like he's playing for the other team. But I think this game being played indoors, I think that's going to elevate the passing numbers. I think for each team, in my opinion, I think this is also going to favor Riley Leonard and company. And we know that if you give Riley Leonard enough time, he is going to pick you apart. And he has done that time and time again. You've got to make him have to try to scramble, get out of the pocket. You cannot allow Riley Leonard to just sit back there. He will, in fact, pick you apart. But the problem is, I looked at that Penn State game. He had 25 pass plays for 79 yards. Georgia kind of did a really good job of containing him. And if it wasn't for the fact that it was a backup quarterback in which they ended up in the final, 60 seconds of the first half and the opening kick return in the second, What else did they do exactly, Notre Dame offensively? And I think that's where the problem lies in this game, because I don't think Notre Dame's offense is even remotely close to being good enough to go up against an Ohio State defense that, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely elite and the best defense in the country. And I don't think it's even close here. When you look at what Oregon, who is really top 3, top 4 in every offensive statistical category in the country, Yeah, they were the only team to score more than 17 points against this Ohio State Buckeyes defense. And if you look at the list of teams that couldn't get more than 17 points, 3 of them are way better offensively than Notre Dame. So, and don't forget, Notre Dame's offensive numbers, their average points per game, keep in mind, they had 6 defensive touchdowns scored this year, and they didn't allow 1. So their numbers are a little bit skewed. But when I look at this offense, I don't see Notre Dame getting the 17 points. And I think they're going to absolutely have to score more than that to win it. So I don't think they're going to win this game. I think the question is whether or not they can stay within 2 scores of Ohio State. And I have a feeling, much like we just watched this defense go up and pick apart where they smell blood in the water, this game could get out of hand, which is why I think it is so important for the Notre Dame defense to not give up the big passing plays, to force Will Howard into being in uncomfortable situations and try to get as much momentum as they can early. So here's what I've done. I went ahead, I took Notre Dame early in this game. In the first half, I took the under 23 in the first half, and I took Notre Dame +6 in the first half. The only way I think this game doesn't become a blowout, and I do think there's a pretty good chance in the second half, Ohio State can run away with this game. But I think if they're not close early, Notre Dame, they ain't going to be close late. And I think that's what you got to look for. So I do think there's some great live betting opportunities. I'll split the game in half. If Notre Dame can keep it close, those are a couple easy tickets to cash there. We'll have some final thoughts on it when Game Time Decisions returns here on the Grid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by Game Time Decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
All right, welcome in. Tick tock here as the minutes are counting down as we are getting ready to hand off the baton here to our good friends with college football right around the corner, the national championship game here. Joe Lisi, Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh. They will have you the rest of the way here tonight on the SportsGrid Network as number 8, Ohio State, taking on number 7. No, they got to do something with the seeding next year. I mean, my goodness, it's kind of laughable when you look at that here. But we are still seeing some late money coming in here, and it all seems to be at this particular point. Earlier in the week, we saw a lot of Notre Dame money that came into the marketplace, dropping this thing down from 9.5 all the way down to as little as 8. We did see a little bit of buyback here over the last couple hours on Ohio State, driving it back to 8.5 at some spots. The total remaining strong right around that 45.5 mark. I do tend to think, though, again, there's a correlation here. If you're back in Notre Dame, you are probably looking at the under. If you like the over, well, then maybe an Ohio State team total up and over, because I do believe they're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting here tonight if this thing is going to go up and over. Ultimately, I'm going to take a shot backing Notre Dame in the first half, because my feeling is if they're not covering this thing early in the game, they don't have a chance of covering it late in the game here. They have to make Will Howard uncomfortable early. They got to try to force him into maybe a bad throw, maybe a turnover. I think that is their best chance. They've got to muck this game up and make it ugly early. I'll take the 6 in the first half. I'll take the under 23. Ultimately, I'm holding a futures ticket on Ohio State. I do think there will be an opportunity, with any luck, of Notre Dame taking an early lead in this game and the ability to get Ohio State under a touchdown. I think that's going to be alive and well. So I think there's going to be a few ways to be able to get this game going. I think both quarterbacks for anytime touchdowns isn't a bad look either, as both Will Howard and Riley Leonard have the ability to use their legs in the red zone and get something done. I also think Jeremiah Smith at minus 135 for an anytime touchdown. I think it's great, but we saw Texas basically go anybody but Jeremiah Smith. And as it turns out, well, everyone but Jeremiah Smith pretty much beat them. And it'll be interesting to see what Notre Dame has in store for him. But there is no excuses. Forget about injuries. Forget about all of that. Both teams have suffered significant injuries over the course of the season. Both teams at this point, nobody is healthy at this time in the season. Everybody is banged up, but it is indoors in Atlanta. And there are going to be opportunities, I think, to throw the ball and throw it a lot. So I like Will Howard's passing prop, his passing yards up and over here tonight. And I do think that's going to be correlated into more points ultimately with Ohio State than Notre Dame. I got Notre Dame under 17.5 total points in this game. I think they're lucky if they can get to 17. But again, I'm also going to take a flyer with them, at least limiting the big playability early in this game for Ohio State. Both teams not exactly fast-paced, very methodical with the way they are moving the ball up and down the field. And as we've learned in the NFL, those teams that lose the turnover battle tend to lose the game. I think that's going to be huge here. Which defense can make the other quarterback make a few bad decisions? Will it be Ohio State or will it be Notre Dame? I think ultimately your national champion is going to be Ohio State. I think it should be a fun ride along the way with some great in-game betting opportunities, which is why you shouldn't go anywhere other than right here on the SportsGrid Network, as we'll get ready to pass it off to the college football crew here with Ben Stevens, Joe Lisi, Kevin Walsh. We'll pass the baton to these guys, and they will have you covered the rest of the way through final college football game of the year, and what a year it has been. I think this is a great national championship matchup. Let's make sure it's a profitable game, and we have got you covered here on the Sports Grid Network. Enjoy the game. Game Time Decisions. We'll be back again tomorrow here on the Grid. Good luck.